This is the Techno Buffet podcast, episode number 580, recorded Thursday, March 24th, 2022, in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome to another exciting yet sedate episode of the Techno Buffet podcast.
Yes, it will be sedate.
Well, it's been a long week. Things happen, Jerry.
They do?
No, happened, not things are happening.
Oh. Like what?
Well, it started last week with a leak. So there was a minor overflow of a dishwasher in the floor above my apartment. So on Friday, that dishwasher was replaced. I know because I let the appliance store people in to replace it. Then on Tuesday, my ceiling went from just having one or two stains because of an overflow to essentially serious water. So I had to have somebody come and figure out why. Turns out that the people who installed the dishwasher installed a hose with a hole in it.
I'm sorry, what?
You know those metal braided supply hoses that dishwashers use?
Yes.
There was a hole in it.
Interesting.
As in, there was a break in the metal hose, and that was what was leaking into my ceiling. So they had to remove a large piece of sheetrock and replace it. So I decided it was a good idea to make myself scarce because when the smell of the wet sheetrock was problematic for me, and for some reason sheetrock, like the dust and everything always gets to me. So I decided I would make myself scarce. So I fled. So last night I loaded up, well, there's actually another component to the story. I loaded up my parents' van with supplies and came 100 miles to open up the house that they spend time in outside of the city because they're planning on coming back from Florida shortly. I was going to do that later, but I figured I would kill two birds with one stone. So on Sunday, I went to their garage and pulled their car out to make sure there weren't any problems, and one of their tires was flat, so I had to go replace it. So then I drove up here, unloaded the car, and spent the day working up here, and now I'm tired. So it's been a long few days.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Only one more day till the weekend when I will be just staying here. My plan is to sleep until I feel not tired, which may be like Sunday, and then drive back. Anyway, we'll see. I also have to do some repairs here. There was a power outage, and my weather station here is offline. I wasn't prepared to drive 100 miles to fix a weather station, but I'm here anyway. So again, not my usual chipper and perky self, but I'll do what I can. So a few things that have been going on. Last week, you sent me one story.
I did.
Yeah, so that's, let's see, 11 years. One for you and what,
8 gazillion for you.
I haven't been counting, but
It's
send more.
It's 8 gazillion plus or minus a bazillion.
Yeah, but please send more. But I was so unused to the fact that you would sent something that I forgot about it until this week.
It's all right. It's not a big deal. It's totally not a big deal.
Yeah, but it's a great story.
So the story is that CD sales increased last year for the first time since 2004.
But I've always bought CDs.
I don't even have the. I wonder if it's a nostalgia thing, because I don't even have the capability to play CDs.
Oh, neither do I. I got rid of the CD player a long time ago. I buy CDs for a more practical reason. Number
What's
one, I'll give you a few good reasons to buy a CD. Number one, it is often cheaper than buying the digital version. Remember, I like old stuff, so it's not necessarily new.
All right, okay.
You know, if it was the
Cheaper
latest.
than buying the digital version, I'll buy that.
Okay. Number two, you end up with a physical backup copy you can store somewhere.
And silver-plated CDs normally store for what, 50 years?
I don't know. I haven't tested how long. In theory, yes, it will last for many decades. The ones that you burn yourself, not quite so much, but the professionally pressed ones should last for somewhere between 30 and 50 years at least. And again, if you are an audiophile, which I'm not necessarily, you can always rip it at a higher quality level than you might get from certain providers.
Well, for those of you that are curious, CD sales in 2020 were 483 million. It went up $100 million in 2021 to 584 million.
I wonder what people were buying.
I don't know.
As I said, I never stop because it works for me. Occasionally I do buy digital stuff, but for the most part, if I'm looking for something that I can get on a physical version, I'll buy the physical version. It'll end up in my binder because I don't keep the case. I'm not a collector or anything. I keep the insert and the case, and I rip it, and that's it.
Well, it's worth noting that vinyl, actual, records, they increased from $643 million to $1 billion in the same time period. So even though CDs did grow, vinyl is a bigger market than CDs.
I have not purchased vinyl in a while, but my entire vinyl collection is actually right here. Don't you remember the old days when after the podcast I used to play records?
I do.
I switched to a kazoo. There are no legal entanglements. Anyway, let's move on to some other stories, and I'm still working on that categorization, but I've, as you heard from that, been a bit busy. So apparently Google will test letting Android developers use their own billing systems instead of the store.
But only certain ones. And I wonder if it's only the big boys.
Well, they said, again, starting. So this is a pilot, which is either they're going to do it for more people or they're not. Which, of course, are the two choices, but I'm just saying they have said that this is not necessarily a permanent thing in its current form, that it is a pilot. Pilot usually implies either they're going to abandon this idea or they're going to expand it.
Well, for Google, they're abandoning it is always an option.
I know. Isn't that disappointing?
Well, you can't support something forever.
Yeah, I know, but usually the things that they abandon are the things I actually liked.
I think that's because we're weirdos.
I'll accept that. That should be a t-shirt.
I like the things that Google cancels.
I was going to go with proud to be a weirdo.
Oh, I'm sure that's a t-shirt.
I don't know. I'm always surprised. I don't buy a lot of t-shirts with phrases on them. But whenever I go and look, some people come up with some interesting ones. If you are a fan of YouTube, YouTube is now offering free TV shows.
What? Free TV? I get to be in a TV show?
Well, again, they are offering 4,000 episodes of television at no additional charge. And again, of course, there are ads, but there are always ads on YouTube unless you pay the money. In which case, so apparently you can watch episodes of Hell's Kitchen, Andromeda, Heartland. I'm not sure if any.
Andromeda.
Yeah, that I remember that show.
I like that show until I didn't understand it.
Isn't that a lot of shows? That
No,
no, I'm saying early on you like a show, and then suddenly they pivot, and you're saying, "What's going on here? What happened to the show I liked? What are these characters doing now?"
I feel like it was a space show, and then all of a sudden it was a sci-fi drama, and with no ship, because the ship is broke, and they're not even trying to fix it, and I don't get it. So Andromeda in season 4 just
I'm still trying to figure out the last season of Fringe.
I just watched that a few months ago.
No, I'm not. I'm saying it was completely divorced from everything that happened before it, except the same characters. But anyway,
Is that when the old man went evil? The evil doppelganger guy?
I was gonna no. That's when they ended up in a dystopian future.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
Clearly, I need to rewatch it, but Fringe is one of those keep around because it's a worthwhile rewatch movie.
no.
Shows.
I'm saying there were a lot of good parts of Fringe. I'm just saying that last season, as if it was a different show, and that happens
Sure.
with a lot of shows, and that's why I was saying, it's like they do this pivot. It's we're going to reinvigorate the show, that we have this whole new idea for the next season, but it's okay. But it's not the same show. Find an idea that works with the original framework.
The 100 did that like 4 times.
I never watched that show.
It started out as one show, pivoted to another type of show, and then it went through a few iterations of I have
Well,
no idea what's going on.
well, to be fair, sometimes shows during like the first season, they're finding their footing and they pivot a bit, which I think is a little different than a show being, going on for a few seasons and then completely changing. And you see this on a lot of shows. Sometimes it's just they bring in a new character and it shifts. I know I was complaining recently about Family Matters.
No, this is the 100 changed a lot.
Didn't
It went
Family
from
Matters
this
change a
kind
lot?
it was so weird.
Anyway, it's just one of those things I don't get, where they take something I liked and turn it into something I didn't like. Or I'll go with didn't have any strong feelings about. Anyway, so disappointing, but I have been, as you know, beefing up my home media collection with my physical media. So in addition to my CD purchases, I have my DVD and Blu-ray purchases still, and I've been digitizing. And that's also a place where you can get good deals by buying things in bargain bins and used copies and discounted copies.
Cool.
Yep. So apparently, Android phones that have premium Qualcomm chipsets are going to get better at location tracking.
Uh-oh. What does that mean?
Essentially, their newer chips will be equipped with something from Trimble. And I'm not really sure who Trimble is. I'm not familiar with the company, but I was reading about this, and apparently they're apparently a correction service provider for, I'm assuming, GPS, where they're incorporating this technology into their new chips, which will allow location data to be meter level.
Meter level?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, like kilometer, meter, distance
Yes.
of.
Yeah, the system that we refuse to use in the United States.
Yeah, I was thinking meter is a verb, and then that confused me.
No, but there are advantages to this. Now, again, we could argue about that data being shared outside of your phone, but there are advantages to your device knowing, because it can give you more useful information. I'll give you an example of where this would have been helpful today. So I told you that I came up to the country to open up the family home here, which, as you know,
Yes.
I've recorded from many times, but it was closed for the winter. So the water was off, all the food was, I took it back to New York and put it away or disposed of it. So there was nothing to eat here, there was no water. No. So after I got here, my mother, who's in Florida, called up the local supermarket and put in an order, and they came to deliver it. Since I was working and didn't have time to go over there. Also, I really hate being on the phone and narrating the aisles of a supermarket to someone so that they can tell me what they want to buy, which has happened to me many times over the years. I am happy that now somebody can go onto a website and do that.
Huh.
But,
Okay.
well, again, I don't like walking down the aisles and narrating them, and I've been asked to do that a few times over the years. So the woman who delivered the food called and said, it says that I'm in front of your house. And I said, no, you're not. So essentially, her GPS was not calibrated, I'm guessing, because she was a couple of houses down. And I know this has happened to me where I've been slightly off while trying to navigate somewhere. So anything that improves the accuracy while navigating sounds like a good thing.
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I
again,
would say it's probably more important inside the big city than it is somewhere out in the country.
well, the one in the
Because
big
I
city, you remember Google was doing this. We talked about a story where Google had done some improvements to their navigation algorithm on the newer phones that had hardware that could do it to figure out what side of the street you were on
Right.
because they were having trouble with that. And
Sure, I think the signals bounce around, and all those, reflections are a problem for GPS in the big city.
yeah, so there are
They're
other.
not necessarily a problem in flat Florida.
How about Valley in rural upstate New York? Although,
I
admittedly, the cell phone signal here is horrible, but that's a whole other
can't
problem.
comment because I don't know.
No, I'm just saying it's not a city. It is the country. Moving along, if you like going into the Play Store for movies and TV, no more. So Google has decided to take that out of the Play Store. So the Play Store started out as the Android market, which was just apps. Now it's sort of going back to that because they are taking the movies and TV and moving it into the Google TV app.
Yay!
Which, to be fair, seems like a better place to put it.
I would agree, and will help declutter my Google Play app.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it looks. If you are still using Tasker, which I am for some tasks, their beta apparently includes an easier way to onboard for people who, let's say, are novices. So it's a simplified UI for people who want a more simplified way of doing things, and then once they learn, they can go to the more advanced UI.
That is an excellent, excellent change because Tasker can easily be overwhelming.
My problem, admittedly, finding all the options in Tasker is overwhelming sometimes. My problem is sort of formulating what I want to do with it. It's the same problem I have with Home Assistant. I really just have to sit down and think, what am I designing here? That's a good problem to have because I have ideas. I just sort of need to codify them. So, moving along, apparently Google Photos got some improvements. They're saying that they have a more sortable library tag, a tighter sharing tab, and you can do more with screenshots.
Cool.
Yep. Again, I don't spend enough time in Google Photos. It is a good app. But it's just one of like 4 places I back things up. And I back things up there mostly because I like using Nest hubs as photo frames, and it's convenient to do so. But, if I've decided that I don't want to do that anymore, I could just wait for my Roku devices to upgrade to version 11 of their OS, which will include a new photo streams feature. So this is essentially, you can create personalized screensavers using your own photos. You have to, well, the thing is, you have to upload them directly to your streaming device via connected PC or mobile phone.
Well, that's less cool.
Well, that's the thing. I'm hoping that they realize that it would be nice if I could store it elsewhere on my network. They'd probably say, well, that's not, you can have a screensaver that does that if you're willing to write it yourself. There's nothing stopping you. Now, I'm a little annoyed that they've discontinued a few of those things, but why can't they say, okay, point me at a... I'm trying to think of what, like, generic type of server you could run that it could be pointed at.
FTP?
Not FTP. I don't want to run an insecure FTP server.
Then run a secure FTP server.
How
with
about
read-only access?
Okay, but you know what I mean. I don't think we should be encouraging people to start FTP servers.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I'm just saying even like a simple web server. What's that thing like? There's that thing for indexing. I'm trying to remember what that protocol is, but again, I'm sure they can come up with something.
Gopher? Finger?
I just talked to somebody last week who still uses Gopher. Apparently, there's a retro community or something.
That's so weird.
That's what I said. I said it's amusing, but I don't quite see what the advantage is. But so the annoying part of the new Roku OS is apparently now they're going to bring to the front, their recommendation thing for content discovery.
Yeah.
Over channels, and I'm not sure if that's going to be something I like. But I'll wait until I see it. They're also going to do something to improve their audio. Never a bad thing.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yeah. And this is just as I ordered another Google TV device. As I mentioned, I've been using them to stream content from my home, which Roku does not have an app for, so I'm going to have both hooked up here.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's a Myth TV Android app that I can install on an Android device that will accept it, whereas it would not work on a Roku because you can't just install arbitrary Android apps on a Roku because it's not an Android device. So, again, I don't
see how that would be problematic.
Well, I tried using, I remember I got a bunch of those $20 Walmart ones, and they do work for that. That's what I was using in Florida. But I decided based on me going back to the office at least 2 or 3 days a week, which is what they think they're going to have all of us do. It means I won't be able to stay up here as much, but I might be able to be up here, let's say, on a Friday and take long weekends. So that means I might as well have a better device than the $20 one here. Whereas I don't think I'll be spending quite as much time in Florida in future years because it's much harder to make a casual trip to Florida than it is to casually drive 100 miles.
It's not that hard for me to make a casual trip to Florida.
You're in Florida.
Yeah, that shortens the drive.
Yeah, but you understand my point. For you, what's about 100 miles from you?
Georgia.
Okay, so would you make a casual trip to Atlanta? Or Charleston, or what have you?
A 6-hour drive?
A little longer, but that's more than 100 miles. Okay, how far is Orlando?
About 2.5 hours.
Okay, it's 100 miles is, between 2 and 2.5 hours, depending on traffic. So would you make a casual...
I don't know how you drive. We got highways down here.
Yes.
And we'll do 100 miles in an hour, hour and a half.
That's because you have a 70-mile-per-hour speed limit. Until you get out of New York City, the speed limit's 50. Outside of New York City, some places it's 55, some places it's 65, but it never gets to 70. Also,
the downside's living near other people's.
Yeah, there's also the fact that the places I have to pass through are also part of New York City's rush hour, so I get delayed often. Without traffic, it's probably just about 2 hours.
Wow.
There's almost never no traffic. It's only if I go like at midnight. Even then, you hit construction in the middle of the night. But my point is that I can casually decide to do that because I know when I get here, I have a drawer with clothing, so I don't have to bring very much. I have a desk where I can plug in my work laptop and my personal laptop and work, so I can casually come here. In Florida, similarly, I do have a drawer there since I'm there periodically, and I do have a desk, as you know, because I worked at it. But you can't just casually decide to get on a plane. There's cost of tickets. If you buy them at the last minute, they're more money. So, not quite the same. Also, I keep getting delayed on flights.
Sure.
I've had bad luck, but the last time had my flight left 60 seconds later, JetBlue would have owed me another $50. Actually, no, another $150. But anyway, so again, I think they were really pushing to get it out there just below the 3 hour mark, at the 2 hour and 59 minute mark. So again, so I like it up here. It's nice and quiet. It's not far from home. I can casually go home, and a lot less quiet than New York. The only downside is actually I have downsides in multiple places. When I was working in Florida, I actually had a window. When I'm working here, I'm in a basement, and when I'm in my apartment, I technically do have a window, but it is below a balcony, so I don't really get sunlight.
Huh. All right.
I didn't put the balcony there. I get light, but I don't get like direct sunlight, so it's sort of diffused. Anyway, moving along. Google services and trip planning. So, Android Police wrote a story a few days ago about how you can use Google and its services for trip planning. So, one, of course, you have Google Calendar, you have Google Travel Explorer to explore locations, you have Google Flights for flight search, Google Travel Hotels and vacation rentals. When did they get so many, travel things?
That's where I go for tickets.
What, Google Flight?
Yep.
I always go straight to the horse's mouth. I like to go directly to the airline.
Well, that makes sense.
The thing is, Google Flight can allow you to search multiple airlines, and then you can go to the airline afterwards. But a lot of the times on the routes that I pick, I admit to being a transportation enthusiast. I sort of know who does what. Not always. Well, remember, I don't go to that many new places. I do every so often, but I'm very familiar with a lot of the places I go to. So I know the market between, let's say, New York and Fort Lauderdale. So I know who I want to look at. And it is often JetBlue, even though there are other companies because I've chosen them for the combination of things. If I was going to California, I've done JetBlue, but they're not the only people I've done on that route, etc. So if I was going to a new place, I'd probably do some more research. But I sort of like the story for, all of the different options you can explore through Google, and I think they do offer some good apps. And I do use Google Maps out of all the ones that they mentioned here the most. But that's usually for searching for things around me in a local situation
Yeah.
or to a place I'm going to go to. So last time I was looking for a hotel, I searched for the hotel, and this was a while ago because I haven't really been anywhere I needed a hotel in a while. And I looked around the hotel to see what businesses were there, such as what restaurants and other things that I might want to take advantage of. Not that I planned out my meals, but just to make sure there was at least one or two places there that I might eat.
Sure.
So things like that. I did it a lot when I was in Bulgaria, but there it was just because actually figuring out what the store was required a lot more research. Namely, because I don't speak Bulgarian. Anyway, moving along. Apparently, Google Messages and their phone app were apparently sending your text messages and call logs to Google, according to privacy advocates.
Yeah.
And it's not quite that simple. Headlines like that are somewhat misleading. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
that they're not accurate. So essentially, it was sending a lot of information that could be used to get more information. However, it was not them reading your text messages. It was them over tracking to some degree. So they said that they collect the hash of the message to detect message sequencing bugs, even though that could be used to determine more information about the message. They are saying that that's not what they're using it for. They collect phone numbers to improve their pattern matching for automatic recognition of one-time passwords sent over RCS.
Google is a lot better at that than Apple. No
Yeah,
doubt.
the simple truth is I think you could turn that feature off, where they won't do the pattern matching to try to automatically import. So the simple truth is it's not quite as bad as the people at Android Police implied. It is, again, probably they should do it in a slightly different way. And they may have accidentally, again, taken things that make people feel uncomfortable.
That's because people don't understand what's real, the tracking that really goes on.
Which is the
But
truth. The thing is, I think if everybody was more diligent on the collection side, and I had this conversation earlier today at my place of business, we're migrating a computer system, which is not really my job, but they asked me to sit in because I've been there so long, I know a lot about what's going on. And the company that runs the software that we were upgrading was commenting that we've been storing like all of this metadata around our system for 10 years, despite the fact that none of us could think of a reason why we were doing that, except for the fact that we never changed the default setting.
right.
So we have 10 years worth of this data that we don't really need. So on a positive note, now that we've realized it, we're going to lower the number. But why do we have it? Because storage is cheap, and we didn't care enough to really notice we never got rid of it.
Storage is cheap.
Well, not for everything, when you're doing video, but I'm talking about if you're storing textual based data, think of how much your first storage device stored and how much your current storage device stores.
No, you're right. It's true.
The first storage device I had would have been on my Commodore 64. That would have been a 5¼ inch floppy. Do you know what the storage capacity was of a 5¼ inch floppy?
1.2 megabytes.
Was it? I can't actually even remember. I should look.
The 5¼ I believe, were 1.2 megabytes, and that was double-sided, high density. The
Yeah, that
three
was...
and a quarter, the 3.5-inch ones went up to 1.44.
No, I remember that the 3.5 was 1.44. It's been a long time. I remember my first RAM purchase for a PC was 1 megabyte and cost me $80 for a megabyte. I didn't switch to a PC until, 93, 94? Anyway, so I had that Commodore for a long time. But my point is, storage is cheap and people store a lot of things. And some people, if you're a corporation, you should be on top of this. You should have people. Not always, as evidenced by my employer, who does have people. We just didn't realize we'd set it so high because the system had been in place for 15 years. So we're overdue to upgrade it anyway. New one will be better. But anyway, things happen. It'll be fixed. We're done. We weren't storing anything anybody would be offended by. We just were storing like useless information. No, seriously useless. It's we were storing like audit logs for 10 years of who modified what. We just didn't realize we'd set it that high. and I wasn't even involved, so who knows. Anyway, moving along. So apparently Google TV and Android TV now have a somewhat less useful Apple TV app. So Apple has decided that they are going to limit the capabilities of the Apple TV app for other platforms.
Interesting.
So you cannot buy and rent movies and TV shows within the Apple TV app on a Android device. Don't know why, but again, disappointing. I like the old days, and Amazon has moved away from it, but I liked when Amazon said, we don't really care where you read the book, as long as you buy the book from us.
Right.
Do you remember those days?
Yep.
I don't think Amazon sees it quite that way anymore. I think they've migrated to a different philosophy. But honestly, I sort of like that. If you are a content provider, why should you care what somebody is using to read your content? As long as they are buying your content. And how many?
Which is a hard thing to overcome nowadays.
Well, remember the other thing. You remember how many years did we say that there should be a Prime Video Android app before they actually did it?
Yep.
That was a common theme.
That was
for
a
how many
long
years?
time.
Yeah. By the way, Daryl has joined us on the live stream and commented that he remembers buying a 16 megabyte 72-pin SIM for $600 to $700 in 1993 for an Amiga 1200.
Wow.
So he beats me with the 1 megabyte. I'm trying to remember what the specs were on that chip, but I think the space in my brain that stored that information has released it as no longer relevant of what the specifications were. I just remember distinctly I bought it. It was the wrong number of pins, and I ended up having to exchange it. So I don't recall.
Well, if we want to go way back, I remember my dad spending $800 to upgrade our TRS-80 Model 1 to Level 2 Basic and 32K of memory.
And that's what I'm saying. Storage is cheap by comparison.
Oh, yeah. It's so tiny.
Well, I was just looking at upgrading my NAS, which has several 3 terabyte drives that have been running for several years in a RAID array. And I was looking at the cost to double capacity by switching them all to, since I have the RAID array, I need several, switching them all to 6 terabyte or 10 terabyte, and I'm trying to decide a plan for that. Because since that's an expenditure, that's something I would want to be careful about. It's not a gigantic expenditure, but again, I have a policy of feeling guilty for at least a period of time about spending any amount over $200. I feel like that keeps me from wildly spending money. Doesn't always work, but I try to feel guilty about it.
As well you should.
Although, considering inflation, maybe I should up the number. To be honest. It wasn't 200 spent at one time. It was like 200 on a single item. Anyway, apparently the RIAA has restarted its quest to kill YouTube DL, which is the command line YouTube downloader.
But not just YouTube, but it
does a
good
bunch
for
of
all
things.
the other stuff. But apparently the RIAA believes that downloading music illegally is its primary use.
Which it isn't. It does a bunch of other things.
Yep.
But either way, they're trying to shut it down again. And this time they're going after a small web host who hosts their webpage, after they failed to get it kicked off of GitHub. Anyway, moving along to some Android 13 news. Apparently, Android 13 will add granular vibration sliders for notifications, media, phone calls, and more.
Wow, that's neat.
I thought so. I like vibrations sometimes as opposed to sounds, but I've never thought until I saw this that there was the idea that you could be more granular on your vibrations. It didn't occur to me as a thing.
The topic I want to talk about.
The I will say that that's something that I miss dearly from my Android is that notifications on the Apple on my iPhone
Yep.
are not near as good as they were on my Pixel. Not that they're not pretty or they're not informative. It's just my wife has told me I don't see my notifications as much as I do on um, I did on my Apple device or on my Android. I don't know what to say.
You can always come back, Jerry.
You think so?
Your Pixel 5 is sitting around. It misses you.
It is.
It's saying to you, Jerry, play with me. Play with me, Jerry.
Anyway, jokes aside, we're always there if you need us. Also, Android 13 has a new way to open notifications in split screen mode, and I almost never use split screen mode, so I'm not sure if that would affect me. Have you any interest in split screen mode on a phone?
Not really.
I get it on a tablet. Let's see what else. Oh yes, Android 13 will give users access to some device controls even on locked phones. So the idea being, even with a locked phone, on your lock screen, you should be able to access some devices. So these are smart home devices. And of course, you would get to select what was available to people without unlocking the phone. So you may be able to steal somebody's phone and then make the light bulb in their living room turn on and off.
Huh. That's weird.
Yep. I also included in the show notes this article on how to use bedtime mode on Android. I was looking at this because I've been using the Sleep as Android app for a while, so I thought it was nice to see what the bedtime settings were for the stock Google Clock app, which has a lot of nice options if you look. You can have your wake-up alarm work as a sunrise alarm and gently brighten the screen before the alarm. You can have it trigger a Google Assistant routine. You can see records of recent bedtime activity. When you enter bedtime mode, it can trigger Do Not Disturb, so you don't get disturbed by app notifications. And the phone's appearance will turn black and white.
Interesting.
Again, they care. When I say they care, I'm referring to they care about people getting sleep, apparently. Moving along, Ars Technica reports that the FIDO Alliance says it's found the missing piece on the path to a password-free future.
What's that?
That's a future where you don't have to use passwords.
Oh, that sounds. I don't believe it.
Yeah, so essentially they're trying to implement a credential manager. So instead of, this is essentially like a password manager, except instead of storing passwords, it stores keys that can sync between devices and then are guarded by the biometric or passcode lock on your device. So otherwise known as your device knows everything and you don't.
I don't know if I like that because devices change. Now, if it was something like a LastPass or KeyPass, where it was device agnostic and I could decide which devices could use it.
Well, apparently you can this would allow you to sync between devices.
Yeah, it says that, but
Yeah, I'm skeptical. But we'll see. Google could also be working to optimize Gboard for larger devices and foldables. So we know that improving the Android experience for larger devices is something they say they want to do. And apparently they're working on Gboard. And from New York City, my hometown, since I've mentioned this before, I mentioned the Link NYC program over the years.
Right.
That was the New York City program where they would put these internet kiosks that also broadcast Wi-Fi for people
Right.
on various corners, and there were a few problems with them, if you remember, like people sitting outside of them since they had a little screen where you could get information and not using them on the device, but using the device as like a little mini movie theater to watch porn.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. So apparently the people at the City Bridge, which is the consortium that arranged this, are apparently trying a slightly different approach. So they've put up in Queens, my home borough, the first Link 5G smart pole, which is substantially less visually appealing than the old Link kiosks. If you look at the picture, no, the kiosk, it was like it was a cute little device. It sort of looked like something that you could realistically say would replace a phone booth because you were meant to hang around it. So these are tall 5G transmitting smart poles. Now they're designed to sit on top of the Link NYC kiosk, which is being downgraded because, again, porn. So if you look, there's the article I sent is a picture of one of their early tests of these new towers. So essentially, on top of these kiosks, which again were a little, at least somewhat visually appealing, is going to be this gigantic thing on a pole. So essentially, they're going to be little 5G towers.
I don't know. It doesn't seem that bad to me.
Well, I just like the statement. After like a day or two of walking around it, it blends in.
Yeah, it's not like New York City is, visually appealing to start with.
Depends on the part of New York City.
I think it also depends on how far from New York City you are. Like most cities, as you back off, it gets better looking. At that point, you just see the pretty buildings and the lights.
Yeah, but I'm saying there are parts of New York City that are visually appealing when in it. Otherwise, like, I'll agree with you, any big city, a city street is a city street. But I do like appealing architecture, and there are neighborhoods that are nicer than others. Like anywhere. Moving along, if you have visited the Google campus, apparently the Android statues have gone missing.
What?
So remember when it was a big fanfare when there was a new version of Android and they put out a dessert statue?
Yes.
Apparently all the dessert statues are gone.
Oh, but they weren't stolen.
They were moved from their original area to a park outside the visitor center, but apparently they have just been removed.
They're undergoing repairs.
We'll see.
No, that's what the story's
they're
been
being
depicting.
repaired and held in storage until they find a new home. I'm skeptical about them ever coming back.
Oh.
I can be skeptical.
You can be skeptical. Nothing wrong being skeptical. I approve of skeptical.
Yeah. Anyway, moving back to Android 13. Apparently, Do Not Disturb on Android will be rebranded to Priority Mode.
I like Do Not Disturb better.
So do I. How about this one? You can now create a custom profile photo.
You couldn't do that before?
Apparently not. I don't know. Have you ever used the multiple user feature on Android?
Oh, no.
I've never needed to, and I think it's because, again, they're looking at tablets again, that they are updating it, but I'd never had a reason to use it on my phone. So I've never really played with it. So if there was a way to set a profile photo, I never looked for it. Apparently, the Pixel Launcher search on Android 13 is testing showing results directly from Google Photos. That's good. I like personal search. Back to the people at Android Police, they published an article about the best open source alternatives to your favorite apps. So they included things like Firefox, the Brave browser, Lawn Chair Launcher, which, if you remember, I have used on devices that were not Pixels, because I like
Yes.
Open Camera, which I've used except for, again, a few issues. But I do have it on my phone. It is the only camera app for Android that I found that lets you set the credits inside the EXIF metadata on a picture.
Interesting.
I don't know why. I understand if you don't want that, but I want that if I am taking a picture that I have something in it that identifies I took it. And unlike some people, and I'm admitting there are people who wouldn't realize this, I know enough that if I'm sending a picture in certain places and I don't want that information to strip it out. But I would rather that my photos actually say that they're mine by default.
Cool.
But again,
Sure, I buy that.
yeah, I am disappointed that the camera app, the Google one, doesn't do that. Anyway, I could talk about EXIF data for a while because I've gotten in some fights about it over the years. Some of the things that are in that standard make no sense to me. So also in Android 13, there's another new media player.
Another new media player.
Well, they changed the media player so that it goes up in the notification bar, and apparently the new version of it, instead of matching your system theme, it will pull its colors from the album artwork of whatever's playing on your phone.
Well, that's awful clashy.
Yeah, I saw the screenshot and I don't really like it.
Well, the background of the screenshot is also kind of...
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. And if you've been waiting for Matter to show up, that is the unifying IoT standard. Apparently, that will not be launching now until fall because it has had additional delays. They're claiming that this is because of the unprecedented scope of it. But again, the longer they wait on this, the less likely it is it's going to be a success. When standards take this long to get off the ground, people lose interest.
Well, it doesn't help that Z-Wave stuff is almost impossible to get right now.
I haven't really tried recently. I have not. I have a Z-Wave network and a Zigbee network. I have not tried to expand the Z-Wave network recently. I recently bought some Zigbee plugs to expand the Zigbee network so that I could extend it to a part of the building that is a bit far away. And I'm using the plugs just to bridge it. But other than that, I haven't really needed anything that's running Zigbee or Z-Wave right now. I've also haven't added that many Wi-Fi devices recently.
Well, I want to add some more Annabelle switches to my house.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that you wanted to talk to that since the end of the month is coming, you were looking forward to ordering some more cough plugs.
They are also not in stock yet.
He said the end of the month. We're not there yet.
I understand. I'm not calling him out. You're the one that wanted to call him out. I'm just saying they're not in stock yet.
Yeah,
As soon as they are, I'm probably ordering a dozen of them.
I was just reminding you of the excitement of that.
I have been thinking about whether I want to get he's got some light bulbs that fit perfectly in my recessed lighting, and they seem like really good bulbs, and they're not overly expensive.
What, BR30?
Yep.
I was thinking of buying one for a purpose. The only thing I have to figure out, I was looking at a fixture that I have here in the room that I use when I'm working here, and I have a bulb in there that is not the right shape. So I thought as long as I'm replacing the bulb to get more light around the room, I might as well get a smart bulb. And I thought about getting one of those. But we'll see. Anyway, in one final story, apparently IE11 is being retired on June 15th, 2022.
Wow.
Yeah. And
what? That can't be right.
Yeah, so you're going to have to switch to the newer Edge browser, but they have built in IE mode for people people who still require Internet Explorer. And that's going to be
funny.
around until 2029 for some versions of Windows. Yeah. By the way, I've been giving people at my place of business a hard time about this. We have a piece of software. When we first got it, they had a version. The interface ran on. It was only running on Internet Explorer because it used ActiveX. So they created a new version
Yeah.
of the interface that is cross-platform. But there's one group in my company that insists on using the old version and refuses to try the new one. And I kept telling them, it's not my problem because they can do what they want. They're adults. But I said, you really should be aware that one of these days, either the vendor is going to stop supporting the old version of the software and tell you they're just shutting it off. Because what they've done now is they're not doing any improvements. They're just letting it run. So it still works. But I said, one day it's going to stop working and they're going to say, we're just not going to fix it. And I said, or one day, you're no longer going to be able to install Internet Explorer on your computer. And you're going to be forced to actually try the new thing.
And now they are.
Yeah, but I think they'll be, dragged kicking and screaming, and they'll probably wait till like June 14th.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, we're all set to get upgraded computers. We're still running Windows 7 in our office. We're supposed to go to Windows 10 finally.
I'm sorry.
What about going to Windows 10?
Yeah.
I don't really have a choice. At home, as you know, I run a completely different operating system. But I appreciate the fact that they actually are giving us new computers. I've had the same work computer, which is the laptop they issued me in 2000 and what? I think it was late 2016.
Right.
So I've been using the same laptop for them for 6 years now, and they have not done anything with it, serviced it, anything. This is the laptop I've dragged to multiple countries and multiple locations, and I think it's time for an upgrade. If that means I have to deal with Windows 10, I have to deal with Windows 10. I don't have admin rights on my company laptop anyway, so it's not like I can do anything interesting.
So that's a normal thing?
What?
Not having admin rights.
I know that's a normal thing. I'm saying, what am I going to do with it? I'm just going to...
No, I was asking if that's a normal thing.
For business laptops, yes.
So weird.
Well, that's because they assume that you don't know what you're doing, and they assume that the IT department knows what they're doing.
Mighty bold assumption there. Especially for my team, which are a bunch of software developers.
Yeah. The best I could say is the IT department for my company, not all of it, because the local one that's in my office, they know that I know what I'm talking about. Not about everything, but they know that I am, let's just say, more technically adept than most of the people in my office. So they give me a little latitude, but they have the company security regulations that say that they can't do certain things. So even though they know I'm capable of it, they have to do it for me. But they're busy, which is why if something breaks, I might have to wait weeks for it to actually get fixed. Or never. I haven't been able to access my email prior to 2019 for 2 years. They keep promising me they're going to find it. Anyway, jokes aside about that. Hopefully, it will not inconvenience too many people to lose Internet Explorer capability. So any final or interesting thoughts, Jerry, for this week?
No, I guess I'm wondering if Z-Wave is hard to find. What about Zigbee? Because
I found plenty.
Annabelle said they're coming out with their Blue series, which is Zigbee based, and I'm still not seeing it.
Well, if you see it, tell me, because I run both Z-Wave and Zigbee, and I found that for certain things, Zigbee was less annoying in terms of falling off the network. A lot of my Z-Wave stuff kept falling off the network, and I ended up having to repair it. And it may just be I picked bad stuff, but who knows? Either way, anytime there's a cool new bit of hardware, I like to see it, even if I'm not going to buy it. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Also, I did want to comment that Daryl weighed in on the subject of the YouTube downloader, is that his primary use of a YouTube downloader is so he can see the last 15 seconds of a video without video suggestions covering the content.
Interesting.
I can understand
I'll
that.
buy that.
Well, that's sort of the thing we were talking about earlier in regards to, the sort of ad serving concept. I don't have a problem with ads in the abstract. I have a problem when the ad is preventing me from enjoying the content. As in, it's playing over the content, it's blocking important bits of information. In online video where they insert ads into video, I'm really annoyed that unlike television, like commercial network television or cable, they don't insert the ads at a logical stopping point. Have you noticed they just sort of randomly put them in, so it's like in the middle of a sentence it suddenly pauses and there's an ad?
No.
You don't watch any of those things, or you pay for the ad-free version?
I pay for the ad-free versions.
So do I on some things. I was watching IMDb TV, and they do that.
Oh, yeah.
But,
So, in my effort to support the latest Leverage Redemptions, I watched it on IMDb, and it was not a great experience.
yeah, the question is, if you watch it through the Amazon app, where I was originally watching it, you still get the ads anyway, even though you might have a Prime membership. So is there any way to avoid the ads? It's not like I watch that many shows on there that I would necessarily pay them, but I'm just curious, is there an option? But either way, I don't know why somebody can't take the time to mark where the commercials would have been on a show, or where there's a pause and everything fades to black so they can put the ad there. Also, a lot of these ad-based video networks only have like 5 ads. I'm tired of seeing the same 5 ads over and over again.
Yeah, I know.
I watched a show on there and I saw I saw like the same ad telling me to drink responsibly on St. Patrick's Day like 30 times.
Literally, a lot of my day-to-day job is literally making sure that advertising user experience is as good as possible.
I know. I know you're in that general business, although I don't always ask you the particulars. But I think most people in that business understand that people are willing to accept advertisement for various reasons, but people get annoyed when the advertisement interferes with the experience that they are watching the ads in order to support.
Yep.
So hopefully there's a solution. And there's another group of people in advertising who clearly don't care. Because if all of the people were conscientious about this and wanted an experience where the consumer was happy with the way that the ad content was presented to them, even if they might have rather not had ads, there clearly are a lot of people who don't care, because otherwise there wouldn't be bad ad experiences. Just being logical.
Yep.
So here's hoping that IMDb improves their act. Also, I don't really have anything else I want to watch on there right now, so we'll see what's next. Maybe more Leverage Redemption will come back,
I hope so.
or that other
I liked
show I
it.
was watching, the one with that guy from Leverage.
Almost Paradise.
I didn't think it was bad.
I liked Almost Paradise.
I'm not going to say that it was the best show I ever watched, but it was diverting.
No.
It was entertaining.
It's good for what it was.
Yeah. Although, all I'm going to say is that didn't. I was in a different part of the Philippines, but it seemed very different than the part of the Philippines I was in.
Yep.
So I wonder if that's they just found actors who would be better understood by American audiences, or it's just very different in Cebu than it is in Manila. Because most of the people who I encountered when I was in Manila for those few weeks had a very noticeable accent. Whereas a lot of the people on that show do not. They're definitely from the Philippines, but it's possible that they're actors who spent some of their formative years or had dialogue coaches to be able to speak with less of a noticeable Filipino accent. So I don't know. Anyway, debating accents in shows that are set in countries where people usually have different accents aside, shall we adjourn until next week? Which I don't know where I will be next week, but I'm assuming I'll be in my apartment because my ceiling is fixed, so I can go home.
Woohoo!
I will be back here probably in about 2 weeks because the holidays are coming up, and this is where I spend the holidays.
All right.
So until next time.
Until next time. Bye, folks.
And goodbye to Daryl.
Goodbye, Daryl.
Recording stopped.